Welcome to the RSE Worldwide session, not part 2, version 2, because it's actually quite different than what we had yesterday. A few things on logistics. This is a birds of a feather session, and is only possible because we have a whole lot of people that you're going to hear from and help in the run-up to things. The potentially most important bit, if you want to take notes, find all the links to stuff. We have a shared note document, which we have in place, seeing as, I don't know. We have external people who are not attending the conference, so if you can make your way to that document and want to ask questions and take notes there, especially remote folks, seeing as the chat is disabled and we're not using Canopy like other sessions do. If you want to ask questions there, we will pick it up from there, but you're also very welcome to raise your hand and unmute and when we come to the discussion bits. If you're a conference attendee and on the Slack, there is a Slack channel for these sessions, and that's the bit of housekeeping, and I'm gonna shut up now and hopefully move to the right set of other slides and not lose too much time and hand over to Sandra, who's gonna kick us off talking about US RSE.
Thank you so much, Patricia. Everyone hears me well with this microphone? Also online? Online is good?
I think so.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm happy to be here. I will talk about US RSE, where coders and researchers collide and sometimes make magic. And with the magic, I mean our magical unicorns, because they're the beautiful little unicorns. It's a fundraiser, so if you want this little one, you can give some fundraising. I will talk about that later. I'm the executive director of the US Research Software Engineers Association since November last year. So it's still all very fresh. And with that, if we look really at the history of RSEs, it started in the UK in 2013, which is very exciting. And it looks nowadays like this. We should celebrate it. That is really fantastic. So we have it from Canada to the US, to Germany, to Belgium, to the Netherlands, to the Research Software Engineers of Switzerland, the Nordic RSEs, RSSE, Africa, Australia, New Zealand, Asia, and in this session we hear from the different continents. Yesterday we heard from a set, and today we hear from the other set. So that is really fantastic. So when we look at US RSE, so US RSE provides resources. That is how we started. We started with a Slack, with a website. We have monthly newsletters. We have LinkedIn, Twitter, Mastodon. We have a job board that is very successful. So it's our second most visited tab on the website. And we have monthly 25 jobs or weekly 25 jobs on the job board. You can watch our different speaker series on YouTube or the community calls. So we have these recurring and upcoming events. So monthly community calls. We have an annual conference since last year. So last year was the first time in Chicago, and the red dot in the middle there, that's me. And so that was very successful. This year we will be next month from the 15th to the 17th in Albuquerque. We have a funder speaker series, which takes a break at the moment, but will be initiated again from next year. we have a diversity, equity, and inclusion speaker series, and I realized that DEI, so I think in Europe or in the UK you say IDE, I don't know, but it's diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's the same. We have a media club, which is, so I heard yesterday that there's a suggestion to do a book club in Europe. I think that would be great if we could join forces there. We made it a media club because some people were like, oh, maybe not only books, maybe we want to talk about podcasts, maybe we want to talk about movies. So for example, we looked at the movie Hidden Figures. So we have an education and trainer speaker series, where it's today one of the events, so might be not the fitting time to look at that. We have conference panels, both workshops. Really, the outreach goes, and this is part, of the outreach being here. And we are also at supercomputing every year with a little booth. So the picture on the left, you see me sitting at the booth at supercomputing. So we will be there again. And this year we are going also to AGU in December. So if people are interested in geophysical research and maybe go to AGU, visit us there. It's a very vibrant community. So we have a lot of different working groups like awards, code review, diversity, equity, and inclusion, education and training. I talked already about it. We have a funds working group, so I will talk a little bit more about that. We have mentorship, regional and affinity groups are taking off. We have a pilot project where our community manager, I'll talk about Sophia a little bit, sets up really how can we build local chapters to take advantage of, that groups coming together local. Because the face-to-face is really also that has a different aspect. So this is how we did grow since 2018. So as I said, we started with a Slack and with a website and to talk about it. So we started with about 20 members, and we have grown to over 2,700 since then. And it's a vibrant community, and we ask people why do members join? And because the basis of USRSE are our members. And so the reasons were feeling addressed and included, that it's really belonging to a community, and that it's a safe space for discussion, a safe space for learning, and that there's support of a non-traditional career path, because I think in the UK it's already much further along this career path than in the US. So we still have a lot of work in front of us. So there are already universities like Princeton, NCSA, national labs like NCSA, or University of Notre Dame. They have big teams, but it's not really yet a career path that is well accepted all over in the US. So how can we support best the community? And so to support community, it's often really crucial to have some funding, to have money to be able to do activities. And we were very excited last year, so I love this doggy video, so to have really getting the Sloan Foundation funding. And we invested it for 3 key areas: that we get dedicated staff, that we can do activities and initiatives for the community, and that we have organizational tools and for community health. And so this is Sophia Anja Tonjebru. This is our full-time community manager since December, and she really supports and grows internally, the USRSE community activities. And I'm 50% executive director. And my goal is have to really a long-term financial sustainability of the organization to help further build the community, to help to improve career paths in the US. And if we look, for example, the community initiative and travel funds, So every 3 months, people can apply for some funding, and it's not only for the US. It's for everything that furthers the RSE community. And it's around growing and diversifying the US RSE community. You can get travel funds, for example, and it's between $100,000 and $10,000 per proposal. So the next deadline is September 30th. If that gets a little bit too tight, the next one is on December 31, and you can submit it earlier. You don't have to do it that evening, of course. So yeah, look at this. We have given already travel grants, for example, to Europeans who wanted to come to events in the US, something like that. So that's, you can apply here. And the community awards is really around, we want to recognize individuals because, you know, furthering a community means recognition and also being able to allow activities. And this is, for example, around individuals who made really noteworthy contributions, recognize individuals who helped the US RSE mission and RSE mission in general, and who connect people in the community. Maybe assist individuals to grow their careers and really are crucial for this one. And there's an US RSE Excellence in Service Award and US RSE Impact Award. And we gave it out this year in May. And the Excellence in Service Award went to Christina, my mom. And the Impact Award went to our Dennis Katz, who's sitting here. So congratulations again. So with organizational tools and community health, so for example, we looked in diversity, equity, inclusion consulting, because we want to do the right things, but it's really also important to have training. So we had, for example, a code of conduct response training before last year's conference, because I always learn from these kinds of training much more, and because good intentions are sometimes not enough. You need really to know how to do things. We love our swag, pointing to this again. And yeah, and we have tools and software to make US RSE more effective. For example, we are building up a membership database at the moment. Sophia is working on this to have more demographics to understand for the users. Also what our community looks like. And for elections, so we have at the end of the year the steering committee election, so we will have election software. So, and yeah, the next stage and the next steps. I know that there are things I don't know about nonprofit. So I've been over 12 years in industry. I've been over 15 years in academia. I had 2 startups. I had never had a nonprofit. It's a really different world to get that running, to get the fundraising going, to navigate this, and especially looking at sustainability of the organization. So I know that I don't know how some sustainability measures, for example, can work out. We are looking at the moment in organizational membership fees. I'll say a little bit about this. So yeah, one part of sustainability is grant writing. So in the last 4 months, I wrote federal grants or federal proposals to the National Science Foundation, to NASA, to DOE, the Department of Energy, and also, of course, there are foundations like Sloan, where we have the current funding with. And we are working with a nonprofit, the RBW Strategy. It's not a nonprofit, no, it's a company, a consultant that helps nonprofits. And they're analyzing with us the funding landscape so that we can really apply a mixed bag of funding and have different income streams. So we do the Unicorn fundraiser. So you know, they're not growing on trees, but they can travel to you. So 5 traveled with me, and this is the last little one that is left. So if someone wants it, that it does not travel back with me home, there's still the chance. And this one is not really bringing in much money, to be honest. It's more community building. It's more that people can really, you know, have something from USRSE. The support is great, but it won't, you know, make us sustainable in the long run. We would have to fundraise more than, let's say, the current 70, 80 unicorns. So, but it's a good activity. So Sophia does, community manager award. So some people, she did this year a Slack award where she analyzed from her start in December until I think May or June, who were very active on Slack. And then they got little awards. She sent them awards, and she does these member snapshots. So she contacts people, people can contact her, and then she creates these profiles on LinkedIn, and it's also then highlighted in the newsletter. So to show, you know, the diversity also of our community, to really give the community a face. And the organizational memberships, we are working on this. So until every organization that joins until November 25 will be a founding member for a lifetime. And they get then 3 monthly meetings with the steering committee, the executive director and community manager. And they get highlights on the job board. So there are a couple of goodies they get out of this, benefits. And I looked, you know, I thought, okay, graphics created by AI. Let's give them the hint. Work environment for a research software engineer in 10 years. And they always ask you to select first the template, and the contemporary architecture looks like a nice office building. I think it looks really, 10 years, I could imagine to sit in an office building like that. If you look at the future architecture, that was a little bit, yes, you see definitely laptops and a little bit chaotic, a little bit crowded, but definitely a workspace. So I think it's really very interesting, and I could imagine also that as an office, yeah, maybe in 10 years our offices look like that. So I used then other templates, and Fantasy World, it said no, an error occurred processing this request, so I did not change my input. Please check your inputs and try again. So Fantasy does not. And then Enemy World, oops, something went wrong with the request, please try again. Also didn't like to create another environment, just had the normal template. And then I tried Surreal Graphics, an error occurred processing this request. So my conclusion from this is we can see, you know, how maybe AI does pretend how we look in 10 years with the architecture, with, you know, some future architecture. It is not a fantasy world. It's not an enemy world. It's not a serial graphics. We are real. We are still here in 10 years. We will have office buildings and we work in this environment. And yeah, so really it's about changing academic culture to make RSE really part of the research enterprise. They are already, but get the recognition for it. To keep the welcoming and sustainable environment and keep the grassroots character. And thanks for your attention. And here's again the unicorn.
Thank you, Sandra. Do we have questions either online or in the room? You can put your hand up. I'm going to come running with a microphone. Same for folks online. If you raise your hand on Zoom. If not, we can pick things up later in the discussion when we have heard more updates, and there might be commonalities and questions that come out for more people. So what we're going to do next is, as Sandra mentioned, we have a wonderful world map with RSE associations and groups popping up and developing all over the world. And we're gonna just basically go through them, invite people to talk about their recent activities for a few minutes in no particular order. And in today's session, we're kicking off with Canada. So just a little bit north from where we just were. And yeah, I'll hand you the microphone and
Hello, everyone. My name is Chen Zhang, Senior Analyst in Research Software at the Digital Research Alliance of Canada. This is my third time to attend the RSE conference. And the primary motivation for me to attend this workshop is to understand the pulse of current RSE needs and trends across the globe for opportunities to learn from the forefront of RS, research software, as well as to formulate both funding and service provision insights and decisions that could catalyze the future research software initiatives in Canada. Right after the very first RSE conference in 2016, Canada was one of the 2 countries who showed interest in forming a national RSE association. Right now, 8 years have passed, and finally, in May this year, 2014, the Alliance has launched the Canadian Research Software Community, or RSCAN, with 2 communication channels, Slack channels and the mailing list. So far, we are only less than 4 months old, and with the active membership of 165, as of the end of last month. Because we are so young, so that's why we are here to, seek the best practices and recommendations from the other RSE associations on how to encourage proactive engagement within and across the associations to thrive the community. As to the recent success, I have 2 items to celebrate with the group. The first one is in last month, on August 7th, the Alliance has launched and published the National Software Management Template that could be used by both vendors and the research software developers and users. So far, as of yesterday, I think the SMP template has been, let me see, 296 views and 388 downloads. And the other news I'd like to share, but not listed here, is the publication of the AI position paper, which is a collaborative effort between the Alliance and the RSE. So the position paper is titled with research software is critical to the future of AI-driven research. So this paper was published on August 22nd, and it was not only trying to recognize research software and its personnel as the integral components of the technological infrastructure, but also offers some recommendations, for the future AI strategies that is to be developed. So right after this presentation, I will put both the Zenodo links to these 2 publications in our collaborative notes. And also, I want to mention that as of yesterday, the AI position paper has over 900 views and over 100 downloads. So that's everything I would like to share for now. Thank you for your attention.
thank you so much. That is, a good start for being only 4 months old. Next up, we're going to Australia and New Zealand. And Roland will be talking. Roland, I'm your slide mover, so just let me know when you need me to move on. And
thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for this. I wanted to introduce the committee, and I've taken 3 slides, but I'll sort of jump between them fairly quickly. I just want to sort of point out the committee members for RSE, AU and Z. And we've got Mercedes Randell from New Zealand, who's one co-chair, and Monodeep Sinha from Australia, who's the other co-chair. And then we have Johanna, who's actually over in the Netherlands now. So this might be a little bit out of date in a few months. And we've got Janet and Nuria from New Zealand, and also myself and Peter from Australia. So we've got this is probably the biggest committee we've had in quite a while. And I think the question around sustainability and volunteering burnout is just like a big question for us in the community. Next slide, Patricia, please. So I want to talk sort of roughly about our successes. We've got a website that is out of date, but that's on the next slide. We've gotten some actual anecdotal good feedback just recently on providing job information. And the reason I've actually typed it into the notes, when we reviewed 150 member requests, we found that the majority of people are looking for jobs. And I've actually heard back from a couple of people saying that they do appreciate us putting job information into our regular emails. And we do get a lot of good community feedback when we ask technical questions online, although that doesn't happen very often. And we've had 2 instances of an unconference that we've done with RSE Asia, which we call RSE AA. And what we've really found is that this has been a really good vehicle for raising awareness with other organizations in Australia and in Asia. And RSE AA 24 is starting next week. Actually, registrations are closing tomorrow. It's an online event, but what we've found is that we've had 22 countries being represented so far, including 11 from Africa. So Anella, I'm not sure if you're there or not, but I wasn't trying to poach anyone. It just sort of happened that way. And I think that's just a way of showing the power of when you integrate diversity, equity, inclusions into these things, which we have done with RSE AA 24, that you can get that inclusiveness. Next slide, Patricia. So some of the challenges that we face is our website is out of date. We get limited interest for regular catch-ups in person and online, although we had one today and we had more than we usually had, but it was still quite a small number. And I think when I say limited community engagement, what I'm really saying is I can't really guarantee that I understand what the community members are looking for. And so that's sort of a little bit of a challenge. And the recruitment and retention of volunteers, I think, is a big challenge. And I think this also might tie in with other associations, but how do we coexist with other players in the research software space within our local area? So, for example, we have tech talks done by another organization and something else is happening. It's like, well, where do we actually sit? Because sometimes there's this sort of disconnect there. And so that can always be kind of awkward. And I assume that some associations run into that as well. And I think that's me, Patricia.
Wonderful. Thank you, Roland. I don't know if you can hear the room clapping. I'm not sure how far that microphone actually reaches, but thank you for highlighting that. And I think volunteer burnout has come up in the session yesterday, so that's maybe one of the points to discuss in our discussion point. But next we're going to your collaborators for next week's conference and RSE Asia. Jyoti, are you there and ready to?
Yes.
Wonderful. Floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks Patricia for the introduction. I'm Jyoti Bhogal. I'm joining from India, and I'm the co-founder and lead for Research Software Engineering Asia Association. I have background in statistics and have worked on statistical software quality testing for finding optimal clinical trial designs, and I've also worked on data governance for research and development for clinical trials data. I contribute my volunteer time towards building RSE Asia, and this is the first time I'm presenting at RSE Worldwide session at RSE Con. So thanks for this opportunity. My primary motivation to join the worldwide session is to increase outreach for RSE in Asia and to expand our networking opportunities. The RSE Asia Association connects individuals across the Asian region who are involved in using or creating research software with the goal of raising awareness about the RSE profession. Although the term research software engineer is not widely recognized in Asia, however, there are many people who possess these skills, the skills that are typically associated with an RSE role. Our community is open to individuals from both academia and industry, and we actively collaborate with similar organizations globally. We have launched the RSE Asia Association 3 years ago in September 2021 during the Open Life Science Cohort 4, and since then it has been run completely voluntarily by our team. And this is why one of the biggest challenges we are facing is securing consistent funding to ensure the sustainability of the community. We would also greatly appreciate any advice or assistance on this front. On a positive note, I'm excited to share a couple of recent successes with you. Firstly, our co-founders, which is myself and Saranjit, who is in the room with you all currently, have recently completed the Community Engagement Fundamentals course by the Center for Scientific Collaboration and Community Engagement, that is CSCCE, and it has provided us with valuable insights for strengthening our community. The second success that I want to share is that we are proud that we have been hosting our third flagship event, which Roland just mentioned about. It is the RSE AA Unconference 2024. And we have been running it since 2022 annually. This year, it is going to be around 10 to 13 September in the next week, and the registrations are open till 6th September, that is tomorrow. I would appreciate if you would like to register for the event, and thank you all for your attention, and I look forward to connecting with many of you. Please reach out to me on my LinkedIn at Jyoti-Bhogal, and I will provide my details to connect.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Jyoti. I'm not sure if that helps anything if I point the microphone towards the audience, but I want you to know that people are clapping here. So that's been our international overview. We're moving now to Europe and are getting an update to what our colleagues in the Nordics are up to. Samantha.
Take this, please. Yeah. Okay. Hi, everyone, and thank you for being here. My name is Samantha Wittke. I work at the CSC IT Center for Science in Finland, and also I'm community manager for the Code Refinery project. And I'm here to talk a little bit about Nordic RSE. We are here to learning from all of you, so it's so inspiring to see what all the other associations have been up to and what has been going on, what are the challenges and successes that you are celebrating. And also I'm here to tell that we are alive, even though it might not look like that when you are following us on social media or our website, because we are very slow with updating those. We exist about since 2018, where the first talks about it have been held, that we should do something in the Nordics, and I was actually not included in that, but my colleagues did that. And then in 2021, we registered an association in Finland, and we're covering the Nordics, so all the Nordic countries, Iceland, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Finland, and then also the Baltics. And recently we have gotten some people interested from Estonia, and we are very happy to welcome them into the community. We are having weekly coffee breaks where we chat about all kinds of things that are of interest to us, and then we also have bi-weekly meetings that we are currently actually starting up again, where we then discuss like the bigger topics. We're hanging out in the Code Refinery chat, so we are also very connected to the Code Refinery people and share this Zulip chat, and everyone is very welcome to join there, because that's maybe the best place to find out on what we're up to. Our main goal is currently to build a community, and the challenge there is to find support and resources for members to be an active part of that community, because we have very many people interested in doing something and supporting the cause, but many are struggling with getting that in line with work and not spending too much of their free time. Also volunteer burnout, we have heard about that. So we're struggling with that as well. Then put some pictures here from our first Nordic RSE conference, which we held in the end of May. We had about 30 participants, sorry, from all over the Nordics and also from the UK. And we got some feedback of people having found a home and being very grateful that we talk about this in different forums and kind of provide this community to join with people that are interested in similar topics, especially from people working in the academic fields that often feel a little bit alone. So it's very, very nice to hear about that. And that was it from me.
Wonderful, thank you so much. I'm just realizing I'm just awkwardly sitting here, which is not the best place. So last network association, I don't know what you're called officially, we're going to hear an update from is the Netherlands. So I'll hand it to Carlos.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Carlos Martinez from the Netherlands Design Center, but I'm here on behalf of the Dutch RSE network, NLRSE. So we have about 200 RSEs distributed in different universities and medical centers and research institutes. So we organize, we don't have a big conference. I think we tried that once and it wasn't that big. So but we organize regular meetups every 2 or 3 months, and we come together to discuss different topics, more higher level, how do you run an RSE group, but also more technical topics like how do you use Rust on your RSE projects. And we try to keep a mix of the two, and also with an emphasis on the networking part, getting to know your colleagues, even if they work in a different institute. There are people that are facing similar challenges, so we try to keep that networking element of it as well. So we are relatively small, smaller than our neighbors, than the Germans or the UK RSE. So we try to also attend some of their events whenever possible. So I think for us, one of the greatest challenges is, just to echo what has been said before, reaching people in different organizations. There's people who don't necessarily identify as RSEs, or they don't know that the RSE community exists, and just finding them, engaging them, making them feel included. I think that's one of the biggest challenges involved in the community. And I think one of the things that we really wanted to celebrate is that there was a National Research Software Day that was organized, and we had like an NLRSE session within there, and there was like quite a positive response from people. So these were included researchers, research support staff, And they were very enthusiastic. Oh, I didn't know this existed. And oh, this is great. We're going to join. So they were very enthusiastic about this. So that was one thing to celebrate. And also, even though our meetups are usually very small, we always have very good turn up. There's always new people that come, and it's not always the same group of people, the usual suspects. So there's some usual suspects that turn up for every meetup, but there's also, we are constantly finding new people that just hear about it accidentally because they saw it on social media or because they saw somebody talk about it, and then they come and they really enjoy it, and then we keep discovering new people. So it's, I guess, that's something that we're really happy about and that we really want to celebrate. And I think that's all I wanted to say about that. You can find us on our website. Reach out to us on social media. That's it.
Wonderful. Thank you, thank you. And last lightning talk before we go into some more discussion-y bits is coming from RSE. They are not really like, you know, an RSE association, but I was thinking about it's nice to have the session once a year at RSECon, but where does the conversation happen between people in the meantime? So I've invited RSE to give a little bit of an overview of what they are talking, and in the hope that, you know, we can leverage what they're doing for the upcoming year. So Dan, over to you to give us a little intro.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm Dan Katz from University of Illinois. I'm the steering committee chair for RSE as well. Yesterday, you heard a version of this from Michelle, who's our director, who's also sitting here. So I hope this will be more or less the same, but we'll find out. I think the key thing to think about with RSE is that our goal really is not to be an RSE association and not just to be a place that different RSE associations talk, but that is one thing that we want to do. But we want to be a place where all of the organizations that are really essential to the research software ecosystem overall are talking to each other. And so if you think about what's important for research software, RSEs are certainly one of the key pieces, but funders are another one, and publishers are another one, and repositories are another, and the infrastructures that are involved, let's say, I don't know, software heritage, for example, would be another. So we're trying to be a place where we can kind of put all of these things together. As part of that, though, we are interested certainly in RSE organizations, and we've recently become the secretariat for the International Council of RSE Organizations. And so the International Council is a place where the leaders of the different organizations can come together on a somewhat regular basis and chat about issues of either collaboration or overlap or things like that and how they get resolved. But again, we're not trying to be limited to RSE organizations, but to look at the entire research software space. And so we also then convene task forces that help different organizations talk to their peers and the groups that they interact with to solve common problems. Well, first to decide what those common problems are, and then second to try to figure out how to address them. So just as an example of this, one of the things that has been probably most successful for us has been our Funders Forum, where we've had about 60 international funders. Groups like UKRI and Welcome here in the UK, but groups around the rest of the world as well, whether they're government funders or philanthropic funders or in some cases industry as well, coming together and talking about how do we fund software, how do we decide what to fund, how do we review proposals, things like that. So the couple of things that are worth then mentioning about recent activity is we've had a series of workshops annually. One about 2 years ago where we had a draft of what we call the Adore.Software Declaration, which is a declaration of principles intended for research funders to help guide them in their active programs. So 2 years ago we had a draft of this and there was discussion about it, and that led then into an actual declaration that people can sign. Last year we talked about how people were doing on signing that and if it was useful. This year we will have another meeting coming up actually next week to talk with funders about how do they actually measure what their success has been, and how do we measure what's going on in terms of funding and what's been changing. So that's one thing. That's adore.software. It's actually adore.software is the website as well, even though that's probably not clear from the name. So you can go to that and look at the principles if you're interested. We are looking at potentially having some kind of an international research software event, most likely 2026 if it goes forward. Again, those of us that aren't from the UK who come here see the RSE Con as one of multiple RSE events. There's a US event, there's a German event, there's other events. And so we're thinking about how do not just the RSE organizations, but all of the stakeholders come together. And so does it make sense to do that in person? Does it make sense to do that virtually? Would it be a one-time thing? Would it be something like the September RSE event that was more distributed? So that's where we're talking about that and trying to figure out what really makes sense in order to bring the entire community, at least the key stakeholders of the community together. And then the last thing is that we are launching a small grant program. And the idea here is that we have been successful in some task forces and some forum. Again, the Funders Forum has been successful. I think the International Council that we didn't start, but we're helping guide now at this point is a good idea. But what other kinds of task forces would there be that would be useful to have? And so what we want to do is to have small grants that can help people develop the idea of task forces and maybe bring people together to talk about them, maybe, I don't know, spend a little bit of money for somebody's time to do some research, something like that. So so this small grant program will come out hopefully fairly soon, later in the fall, I think. And will be an opportunity for people that have ideas about task forces to develop those into something that actually becomes a task force, or at least to try and see what happens. So I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I don't know if, if we need how to create a RSE association task force, but if there's money, people have so far mentioned that sustainability and funding is an issue. So maybe some folks can put heads together when that call comes out. Right. People have been super efficient and on time, which means we have a good 20 minutes left to do discussions. And if there are if people run out of things to talk about, we do have folks from associations here that's introduced themselves yesterday. So, and I have slides here, so we can always do more updates if there's not anything to talk about, but I do think there is. I'll let Sandra wrangle the discussion, and I'm going to be running around with a microphone. For folks online, we're in a lecture theater. It's not necessarily the easiest one to have a discussion in. Also, I forgot if there is anyone either in the room or online that is working on a group in a place that hasn't been mentioned yet and wants to make us aware that there's activity happening in countries that we didn't know yet. So. No one in the physical room is putting their hands up, and I don't see anyone raising a hand online, which means we can go over to discussions.
Thank you so much, Patricia. So yeah, this is a chance to discuss a little bit around how can we, improve internationally to collaborate. What are topics you would like to collaborate on international basis? we had the first session yesterday, we talked about that material, sharing material is really a big topic because there are different experiences, there are some write-ups. So I think working together on that is a really good thing. So, but first of all, any questions to the speakers? Do you have questions to one of the speakers? Here or online? Don't. And please online just also speak up because I think the chat is not activated.
Sorry.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
Hi, so I'm interested in hearing a bit more about engaging with other stakeholders, because I'm a bit surprised how little I hear about this at this conference. So I think maybe it's not something that's done a lot so far. So all the people who make decisions about funding and in research institutions that we really have to talk to and engage with, how do you talk to them? How do you find somebody who's interested in what you have to say, and how do you convince them?
Yeah, Risa, you can answer that one. Microphone. I can give you mine.
Thanks. Okay. Sorry, let's see. Is this, yeah, sounds okay. Okay. I think one way of thinking about this is just that there's a mix of different groups and different interests. And so I think the society has some interest in this, but if you think of the kind of the UK context, this is much more of what the SSI does overall, is to try to kind of play this role in between all of the different organizations and to think about sustainability of software as its core mission. Whereas the society is really thinking about RSEs as its core mission. And so I think there is a lot of discussion that's happening. It just isn't necessarily being exposed at this event. So I think if you were to talk to Neil or Simon or Caroline, then you would find out a lot of the other things that are happening. In general, I think the question about whether or not that should be happening here is a good one. I know my experience in general was that the US RSE conference focused, to me, very strongly on RSEs. This conference has been a little bit more general, and the German conference was even more general in terms of looking at research software. And so I think where the different groups fit in that space, kind of every conference, every group has to decide. As Sandra was mentioning in her talk, US RSE made an effort to bring funders in from different funding agencies and have them talk to RSEs, and the intent of that was half to have the funders expose the programs to the RSEs that the RSEs might be interested in, but half to get RSEs to talk to the funders and tell the funders kind of what they potentially could be doing that would help better support RSEs. So I think there's kind of this mix of different things. Again, RSE is not really trying to look at this in any one country or any one place, but is trying to look at it more globally. So kind of thinking about, right, what are the issues that funders have? What are the issues that RSEs have? What are the issues that repositories like, let's say, Zenodo or Figshare or institutional repositories have related to software? And then how do we make sure that the conversations are happening to try to address those issues or to reduce them as much as possible. So I think from the point of view of RSE, this is our core mission. From the point of view of the RSE organizations, it's not a core mission, but it's part of the mission. And each conference kind of, and each group has to decide what part it wants to focus on.
Thank you, and also adding only a little bit. So we are advocating to different funders. RSE does that, as Dan just described, but it's really one part of the job to talk to funders, to make them aware that this is existing, and normally I really also show them the international, that we are part of an international group and not only in the US. So that is, we try to give funders a chance to talk to us and vice versa. So, okay, there's online a question. Frank?
That's not a question. Also, I wanted to to try to answer a little bit of that. I mean, it's a difficult question, how to get in contact with funders. In Germany, we've been partly, let's say, successful with that so far, usually by inviting them to our conferences and not only asking them how to get money, but most of all, asking them what they need from us. And then they start talking, and that is when a lot of conversation can happen. So I think if you like to get more into contact and you have a conference, make sure you invite, let's say, at least one person from each of the funding organizations that is relevant or might be relevant in your country. And they might just show up. And then suddenly you get in really interesting conversations. It might then need a few years even, because what they typically do is they go back into their organizations and then try to figure out how to actually do that. I mean, one of the problems we face, and I think this was the same in the US, that RSE is across disciplines, right? It's a topic that is not tied to a specific discipline, but at least in Germany, some of the major funding organizations, they are quite hierarchical, structured by discipline. So it's really hard to get funding for something that is across disciplines. But if you can get that ball rolling by talking to these people, to invite them, by inviting them, I think that's a good way to start.
Thank you so much, Frank. And with that, we are going to Roland.
There wasn't much, I didn't sort of touch on the committee of RSE Australia and New Zealand, but the committee is usually made out of people who are sort of, you know, one step below associate professor roles. So they were kind of postdocs or senior postdocs or junior postdocs. That was the kind of level of the community that was brought together. And we've highlighted that we need to have more senior people be a part of helping the steering committee to make connections. And so we've been talking about having a senior advisory panel to be able to meet a couple of times a year. We haven't organized it yet, but the idea is that these people would be professors, they'd be working in institutions, be more likely to be on national funding boards, research funding boards, or have more connections there. And I think that's where, when you already have those networks, it becomes a little bit easier. So if your association is sort of like ours, where there's don't want to use the word young, but you know, mid-senior type people trying to drive the association, it can be useful, I think, to be able to think about more senior stakeholders. Oh, sorry, some more senior, you know, invested parties that are RSEs, and sort of use that as a starting point.
Thank you, Roland. We have another question.
Hi, this is Saranjeet. So someone just mentioned about representations from different organizations in front of the funders. So I was wondering what could be done that irrespective of where one is, there is at least one person represented from different regions whenever these or such meetings are held. And then they can share their own perspectives directly rather than you know, someone else speaking on their behalf. So that was just my question of how we could accommodate people from different regions, different time zones, and not everyone would be able to travel. Not everyone has the capacity to do it. So yeah, how could that be accommodated?
Yeah, I think, and I can let Michelle talk to that or Dan. So the RSE funder meetings, it is for the funders a safe space. So that is not to make them, you know, like joining all these people who want funding, but that they can discuss with each other. So there are only a handful of guests there. On purpose, that makes it so successful. So I think to have something like a funder series is something else. So that is a speaker series. So that could be organized then also per region in different time zones. I think really the funder meetings, that is a different topic. It's on purpose not for, you know, all the people who are asking for funding. But I let Michelle, yes, so that is the goal there. That still leads to, they have a safe space, they know about our communities. I think that helps. And I'm quite sure that, you know, that the awareness that we are growing all over the continent is really helpful. But yeah, we could collaborate on speaker series, I think would be great. You know, so that it's in different time zones. Does that answer your question? Any other question? Or online? So I don't see a hand. Oh, there's a hand, sorry.
Just, do we have a communication channel, something like a Slack space to connect the international people in a way? So I'm quite new in this community thing, and I met a few people now, but I'm never sure who to reach out to connect to in a way, where to address things when I have questions. Is there initiative for this, or would there be possibility to have this, or is it overthought? Is it too much, or?
No, I think that is a great idea. We should have something like an international channel, maybe on RSE, or maybe with, you know, the UK RSE channel, that there's an extra international channel where everyone can join.
There is one on the UK Society of RSE, a channel called International.
Okay.
So actually, the Dutch RSE Association, we don't have our own Slack, but we just rely on the kindness of the UK RSE Slack, and we have like a hashtag Netherlands channel. So we just piggyback on that. And it's something, but I know that the US RSE has their own Slack channel, and I also follow that one. It's actually really nice that there's many people asking some technical questions as well, and it feels a lot more alive. But I also see that there's a little bit of a balance between, do you want to have a local channel in which you can just connect with local people, or do you want like a global channel in which you can reach to everyone in the world? And I'm not sure what's the right balance there.
I think we need both.
Thanks. Yeah, I think there's kind of the strange history a little bit in that the UK Society or Association at that time started, and so at one point there was only one Slack channel. And so kind of by default it became the Slack channel for everything, but then as other ones started, in the US, for example, everybody joins the US RSE Slack, but most of the US people don't join the society Slack. So we've kind of bifurcated, and I guess in some sense maybe it's a little bit of a question partly for the society about if the society wants to be the UK society or wants to be the global society, which has, I think both of them have aspects of being true. And so if we think that it makes sense for worldwide discussions to happen in the UK Slack, our society Slack, then we probably just need to push people in some of the other channels to join that one as well. Or maybe we should think about creating an international RSE Slack, but then it's a question about how many people want to join how many things, and then is it a Slack or is it a Zulu? So I don't know the answer, but I think it does, to some extent it did come from the fact that the society was the only thing at one point, and so then it all made sense, but then as other things started, it becomes much less clear. So, sorry.
Yeah. No, and I think, sorry, as it already mentioned, if we just agree on something maybe to start, then we can still find out, okay, do we want our, own international Slack channel? Or is it, often it's just, we only need the medium that people know about.
Yeah, I think one extra Slack is an extra browser tab, and I have enough already fixed. So, but at least maybe we should raise awareness that it exists. So I wasn't aware of it, and maybe now after the session yesterday also, maybe to distribute it again and make people aware that it exists. And I have the UK Slack anyway, so I would be very fine with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think also yesterday from the session we talked about more sharing material, sending around what is already there, so that for example USRC has 2 career guides, and it might be, you know, some overlap with also career path building in other countries. It's a little bit tailored to also the US with the examples, but one, for example, is with the IEEE Computer Society and more general. So that was co-organized by Dan. I think there's a lot of material, and Visa has started with putting, you know, information together. So I think really we need a space probably where we can say, okay, internationally, this is where we find resources. This is how we can communicate fast. So if we can set that up, I think that's very helpful. And with also the International Council, with now Risa being the secretary, maybe that can give also more impulses to do something. And next year, so Michelle, you want to maybe talk about the event?
There's a couple of people online and then I can.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay.
Hey, hi Sandra.
Hi.
A nice unicorn, by the way. And so my question is around Asian region. So here we don't really have people working with the title of an RSE. However, they do have those skills. So I just wanted to know if someone has any suggestion for building the pathways for the scene.
For building, sorry, I did not.
For building the pathways for people to work as RSC.
So knowing, you know, so I think the Asian landscape, you probably have to, what I know, you have to call it probably first differently, that it fits into the ecosystem. That doesn't mean that you cannot say, and by the way, these are worldwide called research software engineers. And having really pathways with your national labs is a little bit different. So with the structure with the universities, as far as I know, so if I understand this, you know, your landscape better. So I think starting probably with the national labs would be something I would, but I should leave it now to people who really know the landscape. But I'm also happy to take this discussion longer, so that we have something like, you know, discuss how in different countries there was a start to talk about these pathways.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Anyone else? Roland?
Yeah, I don't know who was mentioning it before, but I think it ties back into the comment I made in the slides where I said that sometimes you've got 2 or 3 different organizations sort of around the same space. It can be very difficult to navigate as to the overlap that happens. And what I did is in the online notes, I put in a Figshare link to a document I wrote a while ago, which is basically Introduction to the Australian e-research community. This is research infrastructure. And the idea was, it was for people outside of Australia who wanted to sort of understand some of the big players within the research infrastructure, both from a funding point of view and from a, you know, universities and other point of view. And as the whoever was mentioning it was before saying, I don't know who to go to, being able to pull together a very simplified, a simple version of that, saying, you know, if you're looking for this, then you might want to talk to this organization because they kind of do that. And so you can start to build up a mental model of all the organizations that are sort of existing into the space. And so I thought that might be an interesting thing for people to have a look at.
Thank you so much. And with that, we have only one minute left. Michelle?
Yeah, just to end that there's an opportunity for members of the National RSE Councils to come together next year in September in Japan. Saranjit and I and Kazuo Hayashi from NII have a proposal with the NII Shonen meetings there. Which we're just revising. They didn't like our original proposal, but we could revise it to be an international discussion of national RSE associations. So that proposal has been sent to any members of the International Council, so some of you already have it. But if anyone else is interested in looking at that, please let me know, because Saranjit and I want to know if this is of interest to the community, if people would be able to come. You'd have to pay your own travel. The conference facilities are provided free, but everyone else has to get there. So we would love to know if that would be valuable.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So I think that is a good end note, so to plan something internationally next year. So hopefully see you all in Japan. And with that, we are at the top of the hour. Many thanks for joining. Love to see the community grow. I think it's really great when we look at the worldwide map, how it all pops up. And let's find our discussion space also during the events and exchange resources and keep the vibrant community going. So thank you all coming here and online.